This year, I've actually built not a single PC that has been ATX. And I kind of want to continue that because I've been exploring the various other forms. I've done mini ITX, I've done MATX, and while I could do, the even bigger ATX, I think I'm going to do another MATX build coming up because I found a case that honestly is kind of cool. The other question I have is, what is Jonsbo and why did they make such a cool case? Let's talk about it because there's a lot to unpack with this one. And this might end up being a new competitor inside the case market that is much needed. So let's get right into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie. You're watching GreaterThanPie. And if this isn't your first video and you're still not subscribed, maybe consider subscribing. But if you are a subscriber and you're coming back, welcome back, guys. I appreciate you. So today, this Jonsbo D31. What is it and why is it fascinating? Well, let's first start with Jonsbo because I think they're the more interesting story here. So this case actually was bought from a US retailer, came from a US distribution center, but Jonsbo usually can't be. And that is because most of the time when you see this case name, you're gonna see it on AliExpress or Alibaba or places where you have to import. And part of the reason for that is Jonsbo hasn't had a presence in a Western market as of yet. They're very, very, very Asian market focused, which is why their flagship case that they are launching in the US is MATX instead of a full ATX one. Now they do have an ATX case as well that they also released, but this is the one that they're pushing the hardest. And part of the reason for that is if you want a no frills, no compromises type computer case, this is one of the best options I've ever seen. So let's open the box, take everything out of it, and talk about why this case is so cool and what it can actually do. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. New case company, not sure what the quality is gonna be on this. So I'm tepidly optimistic. I'm liking what I'm seeing so far. It almost feels like NZXT quality. Let's get it out of the box to find out. Actually, let's take a look at how it's packed because this does originally ship from overseas, much like everything else. Nice, dense foam, plenty of room for accidental impacts for the side, which is good. And then the box itself is actually very well branded, very comparable to NZXT and Corsair actually. So it's obvious that they are really pushing for a US market here. Okay, and our accessories were at the bottom of the box. No clever way to hide those. Let's see, what's in the accessories box? What comes with this case? So this is the user manual specifically for that really cool function that we're gonna talk about in a second. So I'm gonna just put this face down in a defense position. And HDMI to micro HDMI, also for that thing. Really long standoffs. Don't know what those are for. USB-C to USB-B, and a mesh panel. Nothing else in there. Doesn't look like there's anything for assembly. So maybe this is just in relation to the thing. This is the top of the case. Okay. Now an actual manual for the actual case itself. Interesting feet, it's got felt on it, but decent amount of distance and user removable. That's cool. And on the bottom here, we do have a removable dust filter, and probably one of the first features that I would consider awesome about this case, mounting for a 360 millimeter radiator, or a 360 millimeter fan configuration if you need to. And that is held on. Okay, that is the girthiest magnetic dust filter I've ever seen. I thought it was not magnetic. I thought it was clipped because of how thick this is. But no, it's just got like standard magnets on here. Case flex so far is also really good. I mean, looking at this case right now, this is kind of interesting. So one of the things that I found fascinating about Jonsbo's website is they're very, very, very proud that it is a Chinese owned and operated company. In fact, they tout the quality of the case, which typically speaking, made in China does not come with a seal of quality, if you will. But I can understand why they are proud of this, because this does not feel cheap. This is already pretty interesting. We're gonna have to take off some panels first to really get a good feel of it, but this is like a nice fine mesh. It's made of some pretty solid material. There's not a lot of flex that I wouldn't expect. And then it's literally mesh on top, mesh in front, mesh on bottom. And then also the back is like, it's doing that Lian Li thing where it's like all mesh again. Love all of that. In fact, actually it very much feels like a Lian Li case, which is a good compliment for Jonsbo. But let's talk about the feature. The thing that's so cool that I've been alluding to it. If you look over here, it's got a screen in it. That's right, this case comes with a sensor panel already built in right to the front of the case. So that's what the cables are for. That's what that extra user guide, which I will now flip up into attack position, and its flip effect is shock and awe. I'm such a dork. Okay, point is, there's this really cool sensor panel type thing right here. Oh, I'm gonna zoom in on that really quickly. Okay, so I went to go just take this off to be nice, but this might be one of the most satisfying peels I've ever felt. Watch this. It was a double peel. And there's also a peel on the inside. That's awesome, actually. They protect this front panel. So, attention to detail wise. The screen was not just an afterthought. They actually built this out with like a spaced panel for the front to actually be one uniform piece. And if you don't want the screen, for some reason, they do give you the replacement option of just putting a mesh piece right here, and it just pops in and out toollessly. Now, I do have a tooling blemish here, but that is like minor. No real damage to the case from the shipping. The seams look really good. Like the actual lines for everything is kind of like tight tolerances and very impressive. Panels pop off toollessly, also toolless. And now you'll see some of the weirdness that makes this case so cool. It's got a back chamber. Now, the back chamber itself is not the most elaborate back chamber. It's actually only got enough room for a little bit of cable management and a couple of SSDs. That's right, this thing is actually spec'd out to be able to take two 2.5-inch SSDs. It's got this very cleverly done cable management bar that gives you just enough clearance to run some of your internal cables, but not enough that you would be stuffing all of your power supply cables behind here, which you're probably not gonna need to because it actually has a shroud right here, and that's actually where your power supply goes. So let's pop off the top panel. Captive screws, again, nice attention to detail. Everything just slides out. And you'll see on top, another 360 millimeter spot. Yeah, this case can fit two 360 millimeter radiators, which should make it a water cooler's dream, but it doesn't have to be because it also has enough room to fit an NHD15. Yeah, that's why I said this case is like the no compromises MATX case. You can fit two 360s. You can fit an NHD15, and depending on your power supply configuration, you can fit a 4090, no problem. You will have to use one of those 90-degree adapters to like get the cable to work properly because NVIDIA didn't really think through the design of the 4090 and how it would interact with cases itself, but you could fit it. In fact, I'm going to be putting a 7900 XTX in this case, and it's gonna have plenty of ventilation and probably its own intake fan to help it. So it's gonna be perfect. Now, the thing I'm still debating, because I got the screen in the front, do I get a screen on the CPU cooler? Make it two screens. I don't know. I don't know yet, but let's take a look at this PSU shroud and what's going on over here. So 2 screws, this is the only piece that's required a screw to take off so far. Oh, no, it's 4 screws. Now this shroud doesn't need to be reinstalled. if you don't want it to be. And it also hides one of this case's cool party tricks as well. So another issue that often you run into with these compact cases is PSU clearance and PSU types. This case right here, she fits an ATX PSU. That's right, full ATX. And this can go up or down depending on how much clearance you need for the GPU or the CPU cooler. So if you put a 360 up here, right, you can move the PSU down, and if you need to make more room for a bigger GPU, you can move the PSU shroud up. Crazy, right? And they designed it to be used either intake from the front if you're using the mesh panel right here, or intake from inside the case if you're using the screen in the front. Well, like very well thought out, really well designed. I'm already way more impressed with this case now that I've got it in hand than I was. Like I was very skeptical. Let me see, how does the front panel, oh, it just pops off. The whole screen just toollessly pops off. Well, that's convenient. How do you plug it in? I'm assuming there's a, yes, here's your ports for this. So you would probably plug this in, run this into the case via this hole. Okay, that makes sense. And it gives you nice and easy access to, oh, that's, okay. I haven't had a front panel that was this easy to just take off in a while. So please excuse me if I'm a little shocked. Back here, you also have room for a 120mm fan. And then you can see right here is our PSU slider mechanism. So there's a single screw to hold it all in. And then you've got, I think it's up to 3 different levels of adjustment. And this also gives you room to mount your 120 to the front if you would like. Now that front panel is off, it's definitely a lighter case, but not in a cheap feeling way, if that makes sense. Like I'm holding on this and I'm not afraid that I'm gonna like, you know, wrench the metal off. I knew this video was gonna go one of 2 ways, whether it was gonna go the way of me saying, yeah, this is pretty cool, or me saying that, man, this was total trash. And, you know, truthfully, I was hoping that it would be good because it looked really good. And for $120 for a compact MATX case with a screen on it and this quality, it's not bad. Not bad at all. Let's test fit some hardware into it and make sure that Jonsbo's claims are pretty accurate. So I got a hypothetical worst case scenario here. I've got the 6800 XT right here, which is actually the same size as the 7900 XTX. And I also have this EVGA power supply without modular cables. I think modular would actually make this harder. But let's go ahead and just install this to test. This is a standard size. I'll probably be trying to stick to that. Originally, I actually thought about maybe using the shift in here, but there's no way with this solid PSU cage to do that. So that just kind of goes like that. And then like this, that's actually satisfying. Okay, so taking a look at the accessories bag, we've got quality control, some cable management stuffs, drives. That's actually for an HHD, so that's not for the oh my, I'm about to go on a mini rant. How is Jonsbo, a relatively unknown case manufacturer, better at this than Corsair, than Fractal, than Lee half the time? Individually bagged and labeled screws. Yeah, I can look at the screw and tell you what it is. I'm an experienced builder, but for a new person, this is what you need to do. And I love this. This is so good. It's simple, it's elegant. It's all you needed to do. Just a little baggie that says PSU. Oh my goodness. That should be enough for us to really like just kind of get it in there and test it out. So we had it on the lowest? No, we did not have it on the lowest. We had it on this one, the second lowest. Middle of the road. Okay, that's enough to just kind of like get us mocked up. So as I said, worst case scenario right here. Now this case does boast up to 360 millimeters of clearance with the GPU, or with the PSU in its lowest position. Relatively easy to get to expansion slots. And look at that. So yeah, you can do a 360. Look at all this clearance. Whoa, okay. So as long as you stick to a standard size PSU, this is totally a feasible build. Look at that clearance right there on the GPU. So you'll be able to fit something like a 7900 XTX. You probably can even fit, instead of some 4090s, you are gonna be a little tight in this direction, but lengthwise, you'll be able to fit it. If you wanna put your hard drive, it goes here. So just for like technical specs, just to cover everything that this case can fit, you can fit a 360 millimeter on the top, 360 millimeter on the bottom, 120 millimeter on the back, 120 millimeter on the front. PSU can be oriented in either directions. You can fit CPU coolers up to 168 millimeters. Graphic cards up to 333 millimeters, which is about how long this one is, to 400 millimeters. You've got a lot of room here. The 400 millimeters is if you move the PSU to its absolute highest spots. Drive support, you've got up to 2 solid state drives or 2.5 inch equivalent, so RGB controllers if you wanted them. And you have the option of a single spinning hard drive, which is mounted to the bottom of the case and limits how much fan space you actually have. Cool features of this case include the fact that it has a screen that is removable and replaceable, and the screen can be used externally if you so choose. This is the first time I've opened up the manual. It has instructions to use wallpaper engine. I already love this thing. I'm totally gonna be doing that anyway. Display. So it is 16 by 10 and the resolution is 1280 by 800. Not super high resolution, but it doesn't really need to be. So yes, comes with a screen, comes with the interchangeable front panel. The case itself is, like, when stripped down, probably stupidly moddable. This bottom piece can be unscrewed and can just straight up just come out of the bottom of the case. One of the cool features from the NR200P, so I'm glad to see it here in this even bigger case. This is like a blown up NR200P. That's a good way to describe it. So yeah, motherboard support, you've got MATX, ITX, you can do SFX and ATX power supplies, modular or not. There is some cable management room in the back, not much, but it would be enough that if you've got a power supply that can take advantage of it, you would be able to at least route your cables in a way that's somewhat elegant. I would not be using extensions if you were building in this case though. And you've got 4 expansion slots in the back, and you can fit cards that are like 4.5 slot. That can fit some chunky GPUs. So you've got the ability to fit chunky GPUs, big CPU coolers, AIOs of 360 millimeters, and the whole thing is in a package that is 205 millimeters wide, 365 millimeters tall, and 450 millimeters long. It's a longer case than it is tall and wide. So compact and feature rich. So you'll see this case again real soon when we do the build, because I'm definitely building in this case. It looks like it's gonna be easy, and I think this is actually gonna be a very beginner-friendly case. But that's where we're gonna end today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching, seriously consider subscribing, leaving comments down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Wolfie, out.